Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome back for another edition of Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. We've been off a couple weeks, but here we are. I'm your host, Jimmy Ardwan, with my co-host, the man, Julio Vela.
Anytime we can take it back to the beginning, I'm in a good mood.
Oh, you're so clever,
Genesis Draper,
Hi.
the new judge
Yes.
in County Criminal Court at Law number 12.
That's me.
We go back a few years.
We do.
From your days at the Federal Public Defender's Office. We'll
Yes.
talk about that, and we'll talk about a lot more things with Judge Draper.
Oh,
It's kind of
scary.
fun. It's kind of fun to call you judge now.
You know, I'm still getting used to
I
it.
can imagine.
There are still times where people say it, or if they just say judge, and I just keep walking, and they're like, judge.
Wait,
Oh, wait,
what?
you're talking to me?
Wait, are you talking to me? If you want to get in on the conversation, everybody, we'll have Twitter up at HCCLA_TV, or you can call in 713-807-1794 is the number to get involved with your questions and comments. I'm sure both of you have read the 480-page report that came out today, right?
400. I thought it was 478.
Well, that's if you take out, I think, the full redaction.
Right.
Full redacted
Wait.
pages and the not the partial redactions.
So witch hunt, no collusion, no collusion, no.
So I've only read
collusion.
snippets of it. I'm interested to see, because and I don't know if you'll have a chance to read it or not. I'm sure you're getting caught up with other things. But I'm kind of interested to see and you know, kind of how they went about this investigation, because this is really. It does kind of give an insight, I suspect. I mean, within 480 pages, we're going to get an insight of how the special counsel's office, and you got to remember, these are a lot of, Robert Mueller, former U.S. attorney and former director of the FBI. You got Andrew Weissman. You got all these guys who are former DOJ. So not only are they working under the auspices of DOJ, but these are career prosecutors from Maine Justice. So, I think it might be an eye-opening thing for some people, but for others, I don't know. I think it's going to come down to politics, really, more than anything.
For sure.
How they want to view it. But I don't really have much to say on it because I haven't read it.
Well, I don't have, aside from the handful of federal cases I've had, I don't have as much practice as you guys in federal cases. I know Judge Draper was in the Federal Public Defender's Office for a number of years. I'm not sure how long.
Almost 6.
6. And it's my understanding that the Southern District here in Houston is one of the more busier hubs for prosecuting and for litigating and for getting in the arena.
Well,
Definitely for prosecuting.
Yeah, well, and I have my own thoughts on that. Probably as you know, they're the busiest district, but
The bulk of which is from the valley.
Is okay. So, I hear, are we considered a sanctuary city or not? I hear Trump's going to dump everyone, all the people coming across the border. It's my understanding he's going to put us in, he's going to dump them all.
I don't know that we're
in
considered
the
a
sanctuary cities.
And at the rate in which we detain people and put them in ICE custody, I would certainly not
Yeah, I don't
deem
think
us
that
a
we're-
sanctuary city.
No, and look, and one of the things, and I was talking about this with somebody today, is what the U.S. Attorney's Office here, which so many other U.S. Attorney's offices are doing, is they've really made this push against violent crime. And so what they do is they go out and they pluck these guys out of the Harris County Jail or whatever county jail it is to charge these robbery crews with felon in possession of a firearm or Hobbs Act violation of
Right.
robbery in violation of interstate commerce. It really is, and I've had this discussion with some AUSAs. It's stuff that honestly should be prosecuted in state court.
Right. They used to be more exclusive on bank robbers
Yes.
or armor car trucks, but now I feel like it's everything. It's a
Cell phone
convenience store, it's anything, because you can make a interstate nexus out of anything. And so I feel like at this point, they're grabbing anything, any cruise and charging it. And honestly, it is better in the state, even if somebody's tough on crime, because the amount of time you would get from the state or a jury is probably, especially now that the 924Cs and the gun count charges have changed the way they have, you're more likely to get more time on the state side anyway.
How have the gun charges changed?
So it changed. It changed after I left, but My loose understanding of it, it used to be if you went out and committed a series of robberies and you had guns at all of those robberies and you were charged in the feds, then in addition to all the robberies, you would also have gun counts. And your first gun count would be 5, 7, or 10,
7 years, yeah.
whatever, depending on if you brandished it or if you fired it. But then every one after that was a plus 25, so a consecutive 25 years on top of each other.
Yep.
So it's just 25 plus 25 plus 25 plus 25 before we even consider what you get for the robbery. So that has changed.
Yeah.
And those 25s don't stack anymore. So instead of the 100, 200, 300 years they used to be able to get, now, I mean, it's still not a short sentence, but it's a big difference.
Right.
How did it change? Through the legislature, or was that through some sort of executive action?
No, Supreme Court case law.
Interesting.
So they had an interpretation of what constitutes a crime of violence under the Armed Career Criminal Act. It actually started an immigration case, if I remember right.
It
was the
did.
first.
So
Wasn't the interpretation of that residual clause or whatever in an immigration case?
yes, that
Yeah,
is how
that's
it started, and then they piggybacked on that. But the way the stacked counts changed was the Criminal Justice Reform Act
Yeah.
recently.
Passed by whom?
I mean, I hate to say it's recent. It was out there floating for
Right.
quite some time.
The first
So-
step. The
and
first
then-
step back.
Trump
Yes.
passed it?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
It's the First Step Act.
but it's not
So-
new. Just for clarification, it has been around for a while
You know, it has.
in other administrations. Just put it
Yeah,
out.
Nobody's nobody's
yeah.
enacted it and actually
True.
put it into practice.
True, they've tried, but it was difficult.
Yeah, and I didn't catch it. Did they make it retroactive?
So no.
I didn't think
Well,
so.
so I think parts of it are retroactive.
Okay.
But if you're sitting over there with stacked 924Cs,
You're not going to be able to come back.
Sorry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
924Cs,
Are the
people
gun
know what
counts.
the gun
Yeah.
counts.
Yes.
Ooh, those are bad.
Those
Those are
bad
bad.
ones.
Those are bad 924C. Nobody wants to hear that.
Before we get in, I kind of want to, before we delve into your new life, go back into your previous life as a public defender, and
Yes.
because you really enjoyed it.
I did.
We handled how many? We handled at least half a dozen cases together. So
Yeah, easily.
when you were there, when I think maybe one of them I was retained on, but the others I would be CJA appointed on, and you would be representing the PD's office on the case, and
Right.
I mean they were good. I always felt like, and that's why I started doing CJA cases very early on. I was very fortunate to have Judge Hittner start appointing me on cases, and so I don't know. I just think it's a really good way to become a lawyer really fast.
It
over
is.
there.
It is. People ask me, how I liked it over there versus the state, and it wasn't an either or. I like state practice, but I did like the feds for a number of different reasons. It increases your writing ability, and you
Yep.
can respond in writing a lot better, at least for me, a lot better than I could before. And it's, I don't want to say a more disciplined practice, but it's a very disciplined practice, and I learned a lot
Yeah.
there. So it's good for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it makes you. Also, I think there's. Did you practice state court law before?
I did
Yeah.
in Tennessee.
Okay,
I was a
but
public
not in the
defender
state of
Tennessee.
Texas.
Not in the state of Texas.
So, I've always thought that there was a little bit more professionalism over in federal court. Things are, they proceed on a much more early basis. Like you said, things have to be in writing. It's not kind of this. There's a record for everything. It's not, we're just kind of doing this and
Right.
not putting it on the record kind of thing.
Right.
Well, I think part of it
Sometimes
is,
up in state court.
I'd imagine that part of it would have to be that the AESAs over there aren't 2-year lawyers or 6-month lawyers.
That's true.
And so
Yeah.
when you're gonna go into a court and to know, first question, who's the judge, who's the DAs, I'd imagine it's very similar, who's the judge, who's USA or AUSA. And so that automatically raises that bar. That's my opinion.
I just think that you've got. I always believed that we had one of the best federal public defenders offices in the nation. Still do.
It's a great office.
But you look at the people that have come out of that office. Yourself, you're now a state court judge. Now Judge Peter Bray, who's a magistrate judge over in federal court. We've had David Gerger did a
Right.
stint at the federal public defender's office. Mike DeGuerin Jr. We've had some really, really good lawyers who have come out of the Federal Public Defender's Office here in the Southern District of Texas. I mean, Michael Socolow. I mean, that guy,
Right.
if he left the PD's office, he would be a hot commodity.
Right.
From an appellate briefing standpoint. I mean, that guy is he's got wicked smarts, you know?
Very true.
And the thing I've always admired about that office is you guys come down there, you put up the fight. Margie's down there every day. I mean, I saw Margie, was it yesterday or the day before? No, Tuesday, day before yesterday. She was at the FTC visiting clients.
Yeah, and you don't see that in every office. There
Yeah.
are plenty of defender offices. I would even venture to say probably most that don't take cases, or at least don't take very many. They might take a couple of high-profile cases, but Margie does. I mean, she takes everything from the most serious to,
Right.
you know, she also takes illegal reentry cases. She takes everything.
Yeah. It's
I remember a couple of years back there was some sort of exodus or something that was going on with the PD's office. And I'm not asking necessarily for you to comment on it, but I remember there was. Has it stabilized? Are things back to normal out there?
So obviously, I still have friends there.
Sure.
And I think it has stabilized. You know, part of it is there's going to be turnover in defender offices.
Sure.
There's that. And then there is just a difference in style and opinion. And we are all very strong personalities in that office. And so after a while, it just got exhausting. And I think people felt like they were ready to move on. And I was on that list of people.
Well, on to state judgeship. So where were you before Houston?
Before Houston, I was in Nashville, Tennessee.
And before Nashville, Tennessee?
I was in law school
Where-
at the University of Texas.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Is
I
that
think
where
I did that. Yeah. No, I was undergrad. I'm a Longhorn, too.
Okay, all right.
I'm a Longhorn, too.
yeah. They kicked me out after 4 years too.
Oh, heck
They
yeah.
wouldn't let me stay an additional 3.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I
And
liked it.
where were you raised? Where before that?
Longview, Texas, East Texas.
Longview. That's awesome.
East
I have family out there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great place to
Other
grow
side. Other side, as you can see. No,
I got it.
you got it. And that's where you were born?
So no, I was actually born in Nashville, Tennessee, but I was raised in Longview, Texas.
Wonderful. Undergrad UT?
No, Spelman College,
Where is that?
Atlanta, Georgia. It's an historically black, all-female college.
Wonderful. I'm asking questions.
No, I know.
He's the
I'm happy to
inquisitor.
tell you.
And then went to UT Law?
Yes, right out of college.
Yeah. How'd you like Austin?
I liked it. You know, I was concerned coming to Austin whether or not I would like it, because I was coming from an all-black college.
I was super culture shocked when I went to Austin.
And so I didn't know, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know that everybody has that to say about law school, but it was a great time.
So
I don't know. I can't say that I necessarily enjoyed law school. I enjoyed aspects of it.
I think it depends, right? I mean, I was in Austin, so that
Yeah.
was fun, and met tons of people. That's where I met my husband. So, I mean, it was good. And I wasn't the most serious student. So, I mean, I kind of had some balance.
Were you
Looks
were you
like-
a serious student in college, in undergrad?
So I guess I should say I'm serious about what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So the things that I'm interested in, I will focus only on that. And
Yeah. I think that's a lot of us, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, my hardest part was I was really focused all through elementary, junior high, high school, especially in high school. I mean, I was like focused and got good grades. And it's like, but then once I got to UT for undergrad, I think the problem was I never really learned how to study in high school, because I was doing so much stuff and I was putting in the effort, but I really wasn't learning how to study because a lot of it wasn't necessarily challenging. So I didn't really learn the study skills that by the time I got to law school, frankly, they caught up to me.
that you need.
You know,
Right.
But you know what? I think, and this is why I think there's some lawyers, especially trial lawyers, end up with not necessarily the best grades in law school, because I do think that there's a formula for how to get through law school on learning how to study and note taking and all that. And for me, like I found it was very easy for me in law school. I started interning right away, and it was just easy for me to understand real world cases.
Right.
You know?
Right, the same. I mean, Texas has tons of clinic options. So I did that. I did the death penalty clinic. I did the juvenile justice clinic. I did an internship with PDS out in D.C., so I worked at the public defender's office out there. The one there in Austin. So you're kind of getting that practical experience,
Right.
and that I was serious about.
Yeah.
Wills in the States. Well, it could have been more serious.
Trust me.
Exactly.
Well, but even so, like, I mean, and this is, I think, going to be the difference that a lot of people are going to find when they probably go to your court as opposed to what's typically been the past, is if they file something, you're probably going to read it. You know?
Absolutely.
Well, that wasn't necessarily always the case down at 1201 Franklin in the past, or now at the Old Family Court Center. But I mean, you were never. I guess at the PD's office you did have to do appellate stuff, but you were never really a tried and true appellate lawyer.
No, and no. And
You're like,
No, and no.
absolutely
I do
not.
No and no.
I never wanted to be. I kept one of my own cases and did my appeal, but no.
It's brutal.
No, you can dive deep enough in federal practice, even at the trial level. Hats off to all the appellate people, but
Yeah.
not for me.
I've done 2 arguments at the Fifth Circuit, and I really thought, like, this is just not me. I you know.
Right, right.
This is just not me. I can't do this. I'm gonna leave that to Carmen Rowe and
Yeah,
Brian Weiss and all those
exactly.
guys. Yeah.
How long were you? So you were at So I say volunteer. Apologize. Tennessee, UT Law, and then you go back to Tennessee to the public defender's office out there of some
Right.
sorts. Federal or state?
State.
Wow. I'd imagine you had to pass Tennessee bar. They have reciprocity.
Well, so I started there. So I took Tennessee first. Took the bar out there, practiced out there for about 4 years, came back here, took the bar here.
Went straight to federal?
No, I did a year at the University of Houston in their law center, like their career development office. So I did some advising on that end for night students and public interest students, namely because I wasn't Texas licensed when I first came back here and
Sure.
didn't have enough time under my belt for reciprocity, so I took the bar.
What brought you back down here?
Married.
Ooh, I was going to say love, but I wanted you to say that.
Love.
You see, she said that. I didn't say she came back for love. Isn't love so strong?
It'll make you do crazy things.
It will, wasn't
And
it?
take a bar 2 times.
Oh.
Man.
So you take the bar and then what? You're down here.
So then I come here, I do that year at University of Houston, and then I start at the Federal Public Defender's Office.
Wow, and you're there for 6 years, a good solid 6 years. So I remember, I've been a lawyer for 9. I remember people just kind of name dropping you, and it was like serious business. It's like the same thing with like someone says Vivian King back in the day, like, ooh, that's Vivian King. Same thing with Nicole DeBoard. Same thing with like Rusty Hardin or Dick DeGuerin too. I'm serious. I remember, I was kind of coming up, and it's like, oh, Genesis Draper this, Genesis Draper that, and it was
That's
good.
so hard to believe.
It was strong, no, because everybody knew you meant business, and then suddenly, 2 years ago or something, we have an announcement that you're coming to the with Alex Bunnan in the Harris County Public Defender's Office.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been in my own little world for so long, right? I didn't practice on the state side in Texas when I first got here. So my world was just pretty much people that come into federal court. So there's some crossover, but there are plenty of people that mainly do federal practice.
Yep.
And so those were the faces that I saw all the time. So I've been in my own world for so long. So when I came to Harris County, I mean, it was totally new. It was like, and people were talking to me like I had just gotten out of law school.
You're like, do you know who I
You
am?
had Wade Bainham over there.
Yeah, I had Wade, and Sorsha was there with me.
Sorsha,
So
yeah.
So, right,
Justice
Court of Appeal.
Landau.
Yeah, that's right. And so, did you join the Harris County Public Defender's Office in the felony division, misdemeanor, appellate? Where did you go?
So I came over actually in the PC division, right? And so that was new. And so that was
Right.
getting
First
started
started.
up. And so I came over with that crew to kind of get that up and running. I did the first ever shift.
I remember
there.
night crew.
Yeah. So I was on the night crew over there.
Yeah,
for a few
I remember
months.
that.
So that lasted probably maybe 3 months or so, and then I came.
What are you thinking? I mean, what drove you to do public defender's work?
So when I went to law school, I'm from a small city, so it's not like I knew about all these legal options where it came to being an attorney. You were either a family attorney or a criminal attorney. So it wasn't until I got to law school that I learned about water law and animal law and all those other options.
Right.
It just turned out that I still gravitated to criminal law. And I did an internship with a private attorney in Georgia when I was actually still in college. Good attorney, learned a lot from him, but one of the things I hated was like hounding people for money. I'm like, if you don't come pay, he's not gonna come.
Yeah.
And so I always felt really guilty about it. Had never heard of public defense though. Got to law school, met some of the folks from PDS, the Public Defender Service out in DC, and they introduced me to the world of public defense. And I'm like, oh wow, you can fight for people and not charge them? And they're like, yeah, we totally do that. And so once I heard about that, I mean, full speed ahead. I did not look back. So as graduation was nearing, I'm like, okay, I'm doing public defense. Y'all haven't gotten hip to it in Texas. I'm out of here. Went to Tennessee. It was good stuff.
And then, okay, God rest your soul. So then suddenly there's a vacant bench.
Yes.
And so the rumor was that you were at the top of the list. So you had some people coming to you, or, I mean, you're going to have to make a decision very quickly.
Right.
As to, okay, you're going to leave what you're doing, what you obviously love, and switch to a different hat in the legal arena.
Fair.
But a different hat. Talk to us. Where'd you find some strength, and who'd you I mean, that must have been a whirlwind.
It was. So there are, I'm sure, all kind of different rumors for how this came about.
Tons.
I think we talked about it. Yeah, we talked. I mean, I think we talked about all of them on the show. I mean,
or off.
But it
off the
really,
air,
I think that
least.
people assumed when I came to the state public defender is that, oh, maybe she's planning a run at some point, which I wasn't. Was not. Absolutely was not. I wasn't. And so I came to the public defender's office, was happy there. It's a great crew that works there. Had just come off of a great trial, like the week before all this jumped off. Had just come off of this really great trial, so I was still on a high from that.
I think I saw it on the listserv.
And then Saturday morning, like very early in the morning before I was even awake, I get a call from the commissioner that says, hey, what about this?
Miss Commissioner?
From Commissioner Ellis.
Oh, wonderful.
It's not a secret. He announced it at my investiture. But
Wonderful.
And so it really was, I had heard different people that were thinking about it, and I was like everybody else, oh yeah, that sounds good. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing, because more so even when you have the situation that you had with a vacant bench and now an appointment, I mean, that's even more of a political process than the election. Because at this point, I mean, you had people who had lost the primary, who were trying to put their hat in the ring, and I'm sure lobbying other people within the party to make this happen. And then you get approached. It's not like you were lobbying for it.
Nope.
So, I mean, you weren't one of those, like these other people who were kind of like tossing their hat in the ring and say, hey, pick me kind of thing. So that's an interesting dynamic to kind of walk into that.
It is. Yeah, and it happened very quickly, so.
Did you ever think you'd be judge?
No.
No?
Never. I can name a million people that I know, love, and respect who I was like, oh, you should be a judge. And there have been people that have said it to me, and I'm like, I don't think so, because I loved what I did.
Sure.
And I mean, when you've been a defender for 12 years, you get used to the same old way. People don't elect defenders, people don't appoint defenders, so you don't think about it.
Yep.
And so now, recently, people started running, and it's like, oh, wow.
It's been very comforting, and we've seen it through a number of the benches, at least in the misdemeanor level. Judges who are ready to go to trial. And not only going to trial, holding the discovery orders to the bar, holding their rulings to the bar. It's no favoritism. There's no, okay, oh, this is your first continuance, we'll give it to you. No, well, it's been extremely refreshing to know that, for example, we can go to a judge and be like, Judge, look, We're ready. This case is 200 days old, and we're ready to go. Like, enough's enough. Like, no, they don't have a video. No, they don't have this. No, they don't have that. But enough's enough. And we need a setting, a trial setting. And the idea that an individual can seek the justice and get his day in court is something new. I mean, that is not that's not as basic, as fundamental as it sounds. That's not something that has been traditionally practiced in Harris County. And it's refreshing to know that we got people who've been defense lawyers on that side, and not only just been prosecutors their entire life, and who are going to be fair and balanced and just. So it is refreshing. What have you found to be one of the biggest challenges of your adjustment from defense to putting the judge hat on?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is just that, right? I have to remind myself sometimes, okay, you're not the defense attorney in this situation. And so, sometimes I have to take a break, take
Sure.
a step back and think about that, especially like in little things like probable cause findings.
Mm-hmm.
There are times where I have to make the distinction between, okay, this is legit, no probable cause, or this is just trash and I wish it was never charged, right? And so,
Sure.
I have to, take a breath and be like, okay.
Well, and you work
This is
the night PCs, the night PC shift. I mean, you work that shift.
This is trash, but is there probable cause or not? So I've kind of had to, make that adjustment and just check myself.
Were you prepared, or is it what you thought, the amount of misdemeanor cases or a misdemeanor docket? Is it everything that you expected and more, or is it completely manageable? And is it really like a monster in the closet that's fake that everybody's complaining about?
So I don't know that I had a concept of it. I didn't practice in misdemeanor court, so I wasn't thinking about what was going on there. But I will say I wouldn't say a monster, but it's a lot
big.
of backlog, and there are lots of people charged. And so even trying to get that down and manageable is a challenge. And so, these judges that are like, we're going to trial, enough is enough with the excuses. Part of it, yes, we want people to have their day in court, but part of it is like, we are going to have thousands of people with pending cases, and
Right.
we just can't do that.
The rumor is that there's just a ton of bad attorneys in Harris County.
Is that a rumor out there?
That's just clogging up. No, well, so I mean, a lot of it is on both ends. The defense and the prosecutors not
Sure.
talking, not communicating. Cases are just getting old and getting reset. What has been the biggest impediment to courts having their trials? I mean, where there's talk about getting into the CJC. There's talk about we only can get juries on this days. Let's talk about jury trials. What's the schedule like? Are we going to get back on track?
So I hope so, right? There are rumors that we will get back to the CJC maybe as soon as a couple months. That's the biggest challenge, right?
Yeah.
Right now we have a trial week in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can only do so many misdemeanors in that week. So
Right.
to try to get the trial docket down is virtually impossible doing that.
Yeah.
What some of us have started doing, and probably all of the misdemeanor judges, is just start scheduling outside of our week.
Yeah.
And then we just say, somebody please find me a courtroom. Just find one that's available and we'll use it.
And I was, we can, before I get into this, I want to remind everybody, if you want to call in, 713-807-1794 is the number. Also have Twitter up at HCCLA_TV if you want to send us your questions and comments. But, I was reading this proposed settlement in the bail law reform lawsuit, okay? And look, there's a lot of stuff that's controversial in there. Providing cell phones, childcare.
Was that real?
Yes, it was real.
I'm not making a comment one way or the other because I haven't read it.
It was real. Now, I'm not gonna. I don't want to get too much into it. I do think that the child care thing. The problem is, I foresee with that. I will make one comment on that, because if you think we got problems at the jail, we can't even keep people alive at the jail. You want to put children in a government-run child care down at the courthouse?
Ooh.
I don't think that's a good idea, because there's gonna be thousands of kids.
They got to be vaccinated, bro. I got 4 kids. I'm just telling you.
I
Do you
understand
see the measles that's
concept
going
of
around?
it, but I just do not think, from a liability, from a safety standpoint, I just don't think that's a good idea.
Sure. So this is what I'll say, and I'm not going to say a lot about it because
Yeah,
it is a pending lawsuit,
correct.
but I will say this. Before people shoot down any ideas, it is important to realize that there are jurisdictions, all over the country that are doing these things.
Oh, I know.
Successfully.
Really?
Yes.
I know.
I had no idea.
The problem is we have so much other stuff that we can't do successfully that I'm just not. Why would you want to risk putting children in that mix until we fix the other problems first?
That's fair, but
But
think about the jurisdictions that are doing it successfully and try
Yeah.
to see how close we can get to that. But also, what all goes into the settlement, who knows what will ultimately land. But you have to think about the people that are affected, and one of our biggest issues is childcare.
right.
One of our biggest issues is childcare,
And so-
transportation. Those things are huge
And
issues.
so one of my points was that this seems like the perfect opportunity. We sat here and had tons of candidate shows with a lot of them who showed up. And the big thing that every single one of them talked about was going to a docket control order similar to what we have in federal court, and doing away with all these unnecessary appearances. And the response I got, well, if you go to, this judge, you'll get the appearance waive. I'm like, I get that. Yeah, I can go to Judge Bynum. I can go to Judge Wright. I can go to
Judge waived appearance for one of mine last
Yeah.
week.
No. I get that. But the point is, I think it would be a lot easier, especially now that we have designated weeks. It seems like it'd be really easy to crank out a trial date and have trial settings on that and work backwards from there, especially with the new cases. And that way you at least start alleviating some of this problem so that we're not having to go down there and request waivers of appearances. And we build it into the system. And it's got to start at some point, don't you think?
I agree, but I think a lot of people are going to have to get on board to make something like that happen.
Sure.
Because I can set you a trial date that's 4 months out, but as long as we still have arresting agencies just turning over blood or videos 4 months in,
Agreed.
it's a waste of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Now, I think we all agree, at least in the misdemeanor courts, that it is not helpful, it's not fair to have people coming up there constantly when you know that nothing's happening.
Well, and in some counties, they don't even file the case until they get the blood back. But it's like, here we're just so conditioned that we got to get people in, get them on bond, start
Right.
getting them money off the interlocks and start feeding the machine in terms of the money. And it's like, even up in counties like Montgomery County, they'll wait till they have the results back before they file the charge. So
Right.
I think we could start look at stuff similar to that too.
Absolutely.
Are there counties that actually provide cell phones to individuals accused of crimes?
So I don't know if there are counties doing that, although free cell phones is not like a totally unheard of.
Well, Obama was giving them
Concept.
out. Kidding. Kidding.
Free cell
kidding,
phones
Kidding.
have been provided in different circumstances, even by the government. But I don't know about that one.
That's one of my biggest problems that I have. So, for example, I was sitting in Judge Finch's court yesterday, or last week, or another week. Client bond forfeited. I'm set for trial, and every time, and not only with him, but there's a number of indigent clients that their phones are on and their phones are off, and their phones are on and their phones are off, and they're different numbers. Literally, almost every time I see them. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult on the indigent defense side in some occasions, to keep up with that client. And it's not like it's a retained client where you say, I've lost communication, so I have to withdraw. I personally have a different thing about that. It's like, you know what? If I'm with somebody, I'm going to stick with them, period. And if they're just being a jerk and not answering my phone calls is one thing, but if I know that because there's circumstance or life that comes in the way of them being able to answer or their ability to communicate, that's different.
Right.
And I would love some way that I could just be in constant contact with them. Because for example, this one particular case, it's been pending for a year. And all of us, everyone has put so much work into this. And if he had a cell phone, maybe it would just change everything would have been different.
Right. I mean, there are just, it's a small segment of people, but there is a small segment of people, you just don't have a good way to contact them, whether or not it's they don't have a phone or maybe their living situation is unstable at the time. Now, the majority of people with good information, I mean, we've been a little inconsistent in the information that we give out. And, even I just came out of felony court where 1 minute you're in this building, 1 minute you're in that building, the time has changed, the date has changed. So a lot of it has been related to misinformation and confusion. But there is a small segment of people out there that don't have a cell phone.
Right.
And so what do you do about that? How do you communicate with that person? How do you ensure that person can keep up with their court date? We're still figuring it out.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, what are some of the other jurisdictions that you know of that are doing it, and how functionally does it work there?
Or are there Uber vouchers or something?
So the main one I know, the jurisdictions that are doing it relates to the child care. Obviously, I don't think necessarily in the good old Bible Belt, but there are locations up north, I think maybe over in Nevada, that are doing it successfully. As far as the vouchers, so I think that there are certainly courts that do like public transportation vouchers. Whether or not it ends up being an Uber voucher or whatever, I don't know if anybody's doing that.
Public transportation voucher would be good.
Yeah, I mean, and just, if you go over to Ben Taub and you don't have a way home, they can give you a voucher. I mean,
sure.
That's not an uncommon thing in government agencies.
Going back to jury trials, what is prohibiting, because I thought the same thing, why can't a judge, particularly in the afternoon courts, 11 to whenever, just say, you know what, bring a panel over to this courtroom on Wednesday?
Well, so like for us, because we're sharing.
I know, but if the judge at 11, the 11 o'clock judge.
So if I start my trial at 11, presumably we can pick a jury and stuff that afternoon. What I'm gonna do in the morning when
you order your
my co-judge wants his.
We don't start till 11.
Right, but then I have my 11 o'clock docket that's stacking up.
That's how it is going to be at the CJC?
It is, but the way it would work if we had our own courtroom, you could handle some business in the morning.
Sure.
You could start trial at 10 o'clock, run all day, 10 o'clock, run all day.
What about starting them at 1?
Possible, but you are looking at having many days.
Sure.
Like little mini trials.
Sure.
And that's not impossible, and obviously we're doing that.
Yeah.
We're starting to set people all in the off weeks.
I mean, particularly for some of the DWs will take 2 or 3 days, but these simple 1 or 2 witness cases, those things can be done in a day, afternoon.
Agreed.
I mean, there shouldn't. I always.
And then there are logistical issues because even if I say, okay, well, I want one over here, then they're like, oh, we don't have a bailiff for you to bring. We don't have this. We don't have that.
Right.
We don't.
Yeah.
If the person's in custody, we don't have a place where it has a holding cell. I mean, there are so many moving parts.
Who's in charge? So I always see Cherry, kind of operating that part. So I'd imagine there's a different division that deals with where and when jury trials can happen.
Right. She helps us to, kind of coordinate all of those things, but they only have the staff that they have. Mm-hmm. And so if they just don't have the manpower to have somebody bringing you over a panel to this place or that place, then they're like, sorry, can't do it. Now, what they have been doing when I have said, okay, you know what, we're setting that for trial on this date. Mm-hmm. Find me a place to have it. Then with a little bit of notice, they've been making that happen. They found us a place.
Great.
They've gotten us some staff to get us a jury there. And so.
Is the staff problems, is it mostly related to the sheriff's department and everything, or are we having, are people showing back up for jury duty, or are we still having problems with people showing back up?
I think people are still showing back up. I've been on the job 3 weeks, so I'm not sure if that is an issue or not.
Yeah.
I think the issue that I've heard most is not necessarily having enough people to make up a decent panel, but having just manpower to make it happen, having the logistics of it. That's been our biggest issue.
Yeah.
Have you sat a jury yet?
Monday's my first one.
Monday?
Yeah.
Oh. Ooh, what kind
it's funny how
what kind of case?
You said where?
Where?
That's a good question.
You don't even know where you're going on Monday?
Seventh floor. Seventh
Wherever
floor.
they tell me.
Hey, the trial don't start till judge shows up.
That's the thing.
So,
What do you think?
The judge doesn't know where she's going.
Exactly.
How are
You
the
can see
parties
how it
supposed
can
to
be
know?
confusing.
Yeah.
Luckily, I have a wonderful staff that
Right.
knows exactly
Darn
where I'm
right you
supposed
do.
to be.
Hopefully the parties make it there.
Exactly. But yeah, Monday will be the first time, so
You got your voir dire all down?
getting it.
are you thinking like just saying, do you know this person, you know that person, go? Or you got a spiel going?
Well, so I do like when the judges leave it to the lawyers.
Yeah.
Well, I think I could conduct a wonderful voir dire.
Oh, come on, deal.
And you have no doubt that you're good.
I do like, I mean, they know the case, and so, I mean, there are some things that are common in each case, but I like to leave that to the lawyers mostly, so I think that's going to be my style. We'll see.
How has it been being kind of as lawyers, we're kind of, I mean, we work in teams, but we're kind of like wolf pack kind of do it. But as a judge, I mean, you have a staff, you have a court. How has it been kind of being a boss?
So it's a huge adjustment, right?
Yeah.
I've been a
Walk
defender
around
for 12
in your wizard robe.
years. And so now to have a staff is like, you know, I printed out some letters, and so I was trying to get it on my letterhead, and of course I don't know how to do that. So I was like, okay, let me just run a couple and see if it works. So I did that, but then I could not figure out how to do the envelope. And so then I like felt so guilty. I'm like, can you please print
Can you
the
figure this
addresses
out?
on this envelope? And they were looking at me like, why didn't you just ask us to do it from the beginning? We could have done the letters and the envelope. I'm like, I'm sorry, I know you're busy. So it's an adjustment. They are wonderful, and they like really want to help me. So they've been helping me let go of some things.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
You got any close judge friends? You got are you in the sense of what I'm trying to say is, are you having a good little good judge community, and that you guys are leaning on each other and such?
Yeah, you know, the 16 misdemeanor judges, it's a good group, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like-minded in a lot of ways, and so we collaborate a lot. We can agree to disagree. Some of them, plenty of them I knew before I came on the bench, and so there was that. But it's been a good working relationship so far.
So who's the outlier? Who is it? Go ahead and let us know on the air. Who's the one out there?
You know
that
what?
everyone
In
needs
the
to-
group of 16, if you had to pick an outlier who would just be way out there in left field, who would that be?
Ooh, hey, you can't. No, I asked the question. I
I think we got it.
Who would you guess?
It's got to be Judge Bynum.
Hey, Judge, when you coming on, Judge Bynum, where you at?
Oh, he hasn't been on. You should definitely
been.
have him. But while he is an outlier, he has tons of great ideas, and so
Yeah,
He does.
He's very smart.
he's one
I
of
mean,
my allies there for sure.
Well, he's a very critical thinker.
He is.
And so, I mean, I think he's got some very good ideas. It's, you know, some people criticized him obviously for being kind of way far out there, but I mean, look, the system needs changing. I'm not saying every idea is perfect, or you know, or every idea is bad, but you know, look, something's got to change.
Right. I mean,
We gotta work it
and
through.
literally, you have to take every single procedure and stop and say, okay, does this have to be this way?
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't, or it does, and so you're having to evaluate that with every single thing, because everybody wants to be, well, it's always been that way, and well, no, I don't think you can do that. I'm like, okay, so where is that? And if it isn't anywhere, then that means that I totally can.
Yeah.
you know, two things. One, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing. And two, if nobody complains about it.
Well, you're always gonna have complaints, though.
Well-
That's just the nature of this business. Is, you know, everybody's gonna complain about whatever idea you have. I mean,
You
it's just
never
it.
make everybody happy.
No,
that's for
you
sure.
don't.
You can fool you can't fool all the people all the time.
Here's
Is
the
that
thing.
how it goes?
Something like that.
But here's the thing I've been impressed by. Obviously, you, Judge Bynum, Judge Wright, a lot of them have been defense lawyers, you know, and I applaud you because, you know, obviously I think the prosecutors will say, well, you know, they're pro-defense, and it shows in their rulings.
Fair.
Everything. But I mean, look, do I think it's pro-defense or just leveling the playing field, just being fair? And
A lot of it, that is exactly what the situation is.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're acutely aware of so many of the issues. And so when you approach about, an issue like, well, Your Honor, I've asked for this. This case is 400 days old. I've asked for this discovery, and they're like, well, we're evaluating. As a defense attorney, you the
Yeah.
tricks of the trade.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah, it's not.
time is up.
Yeah,
Well, and-
it's it. It's over.
I
Enough.
guess what I've always said, the hardest thing for me would be, regardless of whatever side I was on, whether I was a prosecutor or having been a defense lawyer my entire life, it wouldn't. The side wouldn't make a difference for me. The hard part for me, and why I don't think I could be a judge, is I think I would have a hard time not being an advocate for one side or the other. I like the competitive aspect of it, and that to me, you go from being a player to being the umpire,
Right.
and that's tough for me.
Right.
So, like I said, I think that's the biggest admiration that I have for anybody who becomes a judge after being a practicing lawyer, particularly one in which we go to trial a lot, and it's an adrenaline rush, and to have to set that aside,
It is. It's tough. It's tough. I think the reason why I ended up loving it still is you really do all of the policies and the law that you have had rolling around in your head.
Yeah.
You're getting to really put it to use.
Yeah.
And so
Now that stuff where you're like, this is what I would do if I was. Now you got to do it.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that has been refreshing to know the law and apply it.
Yeah.
That's been refreshing that a judge actually knows the law and applies it. Just like at a base level, we're just looking kind of for that. So, how long are you giving the parties for voir dire? Are you gonna say however long you want?
However long you want.
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Maybe you are. I don't know. I don't know. Ooh.
No.
We can give them 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
That's a good question. Probably 45 minutes.
That's more than enough for a misdemeanor.
But I'm kind of a softie too, so if they're like, well, I need a few more.
Well, if it's for
Probably would give them
good
time.
cause.
Right. If there are like specific issues, it's hard to say because you don't know if there are going to be some issues I don't anticipate.
I was telling you before we went in the air that I just recently tried that federal case up in the Eastern District in front of Judge Mazant in Sherman, and he basically turned everything over to the lawyers and said, I'm not putting time limits on you. As long as you're being effective, I'm not going to jump in and stop you. Which is a rarity for federal court, one, because a lot of judges won't
don't
even
give it at all.
Although more and more of the newer federal judges are the ones that are,
Even in Houston?
yeah.
Well, that's good to
Judge
hear.
Ellison, he lets you.
Right. So Judge Ellison has
Judge
done
Miller.
it. Judge Hoyt has given it before.
Judge Miller. And I'm trying to think who else. Judge Atlas lets you have a little bit, fair amount. But I think Judge Rosenthal has kind of, she's kind of come
She
a
has.
different way here recently in the last 5 years or so.
You've won Judge Hughes over?
No, I wouldn't say that. I have a sentencing coming up in front of him in a couple of weeks.
I just saw him. I just went by and saw him a few weeks
Yeah,
ago.
no, I would not say I've won him over. He still screws with me about my last name.
What does he say? What does he say?
Oh, he comes up with 1,000 different pronunciations with this grin on his face, while his case manager sits there and laughs the whole time. And look, he's gotten a lot of negative publicity, but there are moments in his court that are very. I will say this: he is the one who holds the government's feet to the fire and makes them sweat like no other judge over there can.
Very true.
There was a lot of controversy when Rob Fickman and a lot of other defense lawyers came and stood by his side after that Fifth Circuit opinion. But I tell you what, if you have a controversial case or an AUSA who might be playing a little dirty pool, he's the judge you want on that case for sure, because he'll sniff it out.
He will.
And I don't know. I've never had a bad experience in front of him. Have you?
No, I just went by to see him a few weeks
Yeah.
ago just to pop in and say hello.
When I first, so here's a funny story. So when I first, right after I graduated law school, after I passed the bar, I got licensed on a Thursday. Mike Anderson swore me in. Cogdell and I were sitting on I was sitting second chair with him on an official oppression case in front of Caprice Cosper. Get a not guilty. And I think it was that Friday, because we get the not guilty on like Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. Friday, we go to a restaurant and we meet up with Kent Schaefer and Chris Flood. So it's the four of us at the table. And Judge Hughes comes walking by. And so Cogdell stands up and says, Your Honor, I'd like to introduce you to my newest associate. And I shake his hand. He looks at me. He goes, Son, I don't know how long you've been out of law school, but I'm going to give you a word of advice. Be mindful of the company you keep.
That's
he
funny,
always
man.
has a joke.
He always has a joke.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
He really does.
Well,
He
thank
really
you, Judge.
does.
Thank you, Judge. So, have you had that happen to you yet, Judge? Where somebody's like, maybe they don't know you personally, and even those maybe who do know you personally, but where you self-reflect and realize, like, yeah, you're a judge, and you're sitting here and you're a judge. Has that happened? I mean, did you have that moment?
I don't know that it's set in like that yet. I've spent so much time in the last few weeks just trying to get up to speed, figure out, how to get things rolling. Because things had gotten stale there in the courtroom while things were figured out. And so I spent the last few weeks just trying to catch up. But it does sometimes, especially, all of my friends are defenders. All of them.
Yeah.
And so, if you were just to look at me, you would think, oh, she must be biased. All my friends are defenders because that's where I've been for the last 12 years.
I mean, it's weird, right? Because I think when you start out as a young lawyer, there's your idea of what a judge is. There's just like this Grand Canyon, if you will, of what you can and cannot say to a judge and how to act around a judge. And then you get further along in your career, and then your friends start becoming judges, and you're like, wait a second. What?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How did they become a judge,
Well, and we do want to reshape, in some ways what that looks like for people.
Right.
And I think Harris County is doing that, right? And so we want people to know that it comes in all different forms. And so that's being reflected here.
So there's a lot of it's a big deal of the new guard that swept the last election. How are you adjusting to that? Have you had any backlash, or have you experienced any highs from that? Anything? Well, I mean, they're like, okay, here we go. Here the Dems come in. Here they are. It doesn't really matter where you're from or what you've done. It's just another Dem coming in on the bench, and these kind of things. Have you?
Yeah, I'm sure. So I'm sure that that's out there, right? I'm in a little bit of a different situation because I didn't run.
Right.
And so.
You kind of get a test.
Well, let's talk about
You kind
that.
of get a test to see
Are
if
you coming in
really wanna
2020?
run.
Right.
Are you running? Or is it gonna be? Are you gonna be up
You
2020?
get the exclusive. I'm running in 2020.
Yeah,
So yes. So in order to hold on to this bench, yes, I have to run in 2020.
So you and Judge Jordan.
And if
It's a
if
special
I was to
election.
win in 2020, I'd have to run again in 2022.
Are you serious?
Because it's a special election.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Judge Jordan's running 2020, no?
Right.
So it's you and Judge Jordan.
For the misdemeanors. Yeah.
Ooh, it's gonna be.
You got the
I don't-
exclusive, JV.
well, I don't-
announced on your show.
I don't think either. I don't think
Hot
anyone's
news,
running
hot
against Jordan,
news.
or
Right.
anyone's gonna run against you. Okay. As far as primary style.
What? I mean,
Felony benches, though, there's a couple that's gonna be there.
Stranger
It's gonna
things
be
have
bad. It's
Stranger
gonna be
things have
bad.
one of our intrepid viewers wants to know: do you think you're going to miss having clients?
Yes. Is the short answer, of course. I mean, it's like a teacher who says they won't miss, working with students.
Yeah.
That level of interaction can't be replaced. And so, yes, is the short answer.
Yeah, because the interaction changes.
Right.
I mean, you still get to interact with people and potentially.
Right, but you don't
Impact
get to
their
know
lives.
the
Right.
stories. You don't get to know the person, the families in the same way.
Yeah.
And that just can't be replaced.
That's got to be the hard thing, because now you're sitting there and you've got to potentially on cases that are without a recommendation or something like that, you've got to assess punishment, which without knowing really what you want to know. And having been someone who's prepared the argument, that's going to be tough.
Right, right. I mean, because you are getting a bite-sized snippet of this person's life. Now, even I probably get on some defense attorneys' nerves. I ask a lot of questions on a without an agreed rec. I want to know things about the person, things about the case, so that I can try to make, an informed decision.
Yeah, I think that's good because I'm glad that you do that, but I think there are situations, and historically when judges would do that stuff, I think a lot of defense lawyers, kind of clammed up because they weren't sure how judges were actually going to use that information.
Right.
And I think now they weren't sure whether certain information was going to be used against them in terms of slapping on extra conditions of probation or jail time or something like that.
Right.
I think now there's a collective belief that, hey, we can be more open, and because this group of judges is more willing to more openly and fairly evaluate things than before.
Right.
I think that's the sentiment around the courthouse, in my opinion.
It's going to be a big 2020.
It is going to be a big 2020.
Judge Draper got my vote.
Is your husband ready for the election season?
He has to be.
Doesn't have a choice.
He is super supportive, so I think we're excited about the change and bracing ourselves for the change. We have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so our life is already very busy. He has a full practice, so he's busy with that, but he's ready.
How y'all manage?
You got 4.
I know, I got 4.
What are you talking about?
I got 4 kids.
I did not know.
Yeah, I got 4. Yeah, I know.
When are you
Exactly.
when are you going to get your starting 5?
Defense ready. Just saying, dude. Defense ready.
Your hour's blown by here, Judge.
Has
Your
it?
honor.
Has
Yeah,
it?
you only got 30 seconds left.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for having me on the
You
show.
were a natural.
I appreciate
See,
it.
you said it was your first time on TV.
No,
She was here. She been
It's been
here.
a while. I was here maybe
Remember?
It's been a few years, I think.
I was here and you were here.
Now you just have to have me back.
Woohoo.
Yeah. Well, just got to calendar it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I knew I wasn't gonna get away with that.
maybe you'll let us know.
I'll check my calendar.
Maybe we can fit in. Maybe
Yeah.
Always time for
We'll
reviewing
be waiting.
Oh man, yeah. Well, sometimes things happen.
They do.
We
They do.
understand.
But I always have time. I'll be back.
We will have you back. Well, you know what? We need to get you need to bring Judge Bynum on with you next time.
You know
Yes.
what? I
need
will
to
do
grab
that. I'm
him,
going to drag him
bring
on
him
for the
down.
next time.
That's right. That's what we got to do. We got to do that. That's all the time we got. We're done. We're out. All right.
Let's bring it back to the beginning.
So we got one more. We got one more show next week.
Yes.
One more before when we go off
We're going off?
for the banquet.
Oh, yeah.
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 So,
Banquet.
all right. Well, that's all the time we got for this week, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back next week with another new episode of Reasonable Doubt. But I want to thank our guest for tonight, Judge Genesis Draper, and my co-host, Julio Vela. We'll see you next week. Good night.